The Olympic Sliding Center, just outside of the city of Innsbruck, Austria, the little town of Eagles, is the site for event number 8 on this year's Eberspeche Luge World Cup. The FIL Tour continues today with the men's singles competition. Hi again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer with the air temperature just above freezing and the ice just below freezing. Conditions were perfect earlier today. No track records, but clean sliding in the doubles competition from start to finish, and the track held out very well right to the end where the Italians captured the race. Now we concentrate on men's singles up at the higher start. 1,218 meters, 1,232 as that graphic suggests, on this Innsbruck track. Right now, to tell us a little bit more about the course in today's men's singles competition, I'm pleased to introduce from Team USA, 1998 Olympic silver medalist, Gordy Shear. Gordy, welcome back.
Tim, great to be here. This is a beautiful course here in Eagles. It's really one that rewards those who have the ability to glide. Last week we were in Oberhof, very much a driver's track. This is a polar opposite track in terms of character. It's really about letting the sled run, hitting a very few key drives to place the sled exactly where you need it to be. Aerodynamic position is tremendously important on this track, and that means keeping your head back as far as possible, toes pointed. There are a few tough spots on this track, and we're getting there right now. Less so for the men, but this exit of curve 9 can be a real challenge. See, the person doing the POV here drops their feet, and then the other point here is the lower labyrinth, and the key here is to get middle into those curves and catch that pocket and really just work with the sled and drive it out here to the finish.
Big uphill to the finish, and our thanks to Reini Jaeger for providing that point of view sled camera, the Schlittenkamera as they call it in Austria. By the way, Reini's going off number 12 as you see in today's start order, ahead of 2 from the USA and the first of 5 Germans in today's competition as they count them down to our final competitor, Dominik Fischnaller. Not to mention at number 29 there, Felix Lach, who has already all but mathematically clinched the World Cup title. He did that last week in Oberhof. So kick back, get ready for a little luge action. 2 runs of men's singles, 64 sleds to come down the track, starting with Marian Skupek from Slovakia.
Come off the start ramp here, it flattens out a little bit. Curve 1 is a nice little bump turn. Really, the main idea for the first few curves is to kind of be middle into the upper labyrinth section of the corner, which is where we're entering here. A little bit early onto curve 3, but the name of the game is middle, not a lot of drama, being smooth, relaxed, and really just letting the sled run as much as possible. And sled setups are tremendously important on this track, making sure that the steel runners on the ice are flowing freely. You want to be sharp enough that you can steer the sled, but not so much that you're creating extra friction.
51.247 for the Slovakian. It's incredible the difference, Gordy, between the men's start and the women's start, where they're at about the 25-second mark when they hit that Kreisel, certainly at a lot higher speeds than the women in doubles do.
Yes, most definitely. They're starting from a much higher point on the track, but also that start curve that the women in doubles hit, really, it scrubs quite a bit of speed off as well. So the sleds are really just flowing nicely.
Well, just warming up here with early action as we get ready to count them down to the seated group. And if you are up early and want to share in this morning's live streaming, by all means, send your comments, your questions, your criticisms on Twitter at Luge Announcer. And also you can email us, luge.announcer@gmail.com. I see my friend Jim, whom I've been covering luge races with for the last 30 years. He's up early this morning in upstate New York.
Watching the start, you want to see the athletes with their spiked gloves You want to see them pull off of the handles, nice extension as long as they can be on those handles while staying forward, and then taking those spike gloves, digging them into the ice, and accelerating the sled forward as much as possible.
Exit of curve 9. And we get
the
a
idea.
chance. Sorry, Gordy.
No, that's okay. The idea is that that's really the only place you can accelerate the sled.
Nicely done. Mirka Nikolaev from Bosnia-Herzegovina. And that is not just acting by the Polish pair, Maciej Kurowski in that coach's area. That's sincere excitement. This is just this man's second World Cup race, and he looked like quite the veteran there.
A really great run. Really a nice run. And, you know, for a smaller nation, learning to slide and just getting the sled down the hill, it's an accomplishment. And, you know, good. Look at the happiness. It says it all.
Green light. Those of you new to the sport, all of the athletes have to go through the lottery of sorts down at the bottom to see if their sled, their weight, their equipment is going to get inspected. That happens if you get the red light. And there's also a blue light, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And that all has to do with varying degrees of inspection that you'll experience down at the bottom. The red light is the full deal, where you're really going to get your sled taken apart. And that's a very thorough inspection.
Kasper Tarnowski from Poland, the first of 2 poles in this morning's race. Yeah, it's a thorough inspection, Gordy, and of course, these athletes, lugers are known to keep some secrets close to their vest when it comes to their equipment setup, right?
Yeah, nobody really likes to get that red light. You know, you want everybody's working to find just the right setup and you know, stay within the rules, but you know, kind of occupy those boundaries as closely as possible.
Tarnowski with a nice time there. He's 2/10 up on the first 2 sleds. Really solid out of curve 9.
Yeah, beautiful exit. When the sleds come off curve 9, you don't want to see ice coming up from underneath their runners. Anytime you see ice coming up from under the runners, it's time that's being chipped away in a sport that's measured to the thousandth of a second.
One entry from Sweden, getting ready at the top, Svante Kohala. And he has had a pretty solid year, and everything is relative, of course. Svante back in 25th place in the World Cup standings. He's had 1 top 20, and that was here in Innsbruck, the World Cup opener in November. But he has qualified out of the Nations Cup, out of that stressful 1 heat race on Friday. Every week he's made it into the main field.
Yeah, that's, you know, and that in itself is an accomplishment. This is an extremely competitive men's field, and you know, that's great.
24 nations, 156 athletes came to Innsbruck. This is a makeup race, not a makeup race, but a shifted race that was originally scheduled to take place in Pyeongchang, South Korea.
Yeah, and earlier in the day we saw the doubles competition with the team of Park and Cho, missing their home race, I'm sure.
And Eileen Frisch, the lone, or one of the 2 Korean women, she did not qualify. None of the Korean women qualified for the draw this week. So, yeah, there's nothing like home cooking, and there's nothing more challenging. Well, maybe there's one thing more challenging, and that's this finish curve. As Svante loses the sled. We've seen this several times this morning.
Yeah, he's got to be careful that sled doesn't come back at him.
That's the little tunnel area. Ooh. And that was a gutsy move by the coach.
That was a brave maneuver indeed. Oh, looking again at curve 9. You see that right foot came down a little bit. I don't know if that was a corrective action or if that was just the G-forces acting on his feet.
It's a sharp right-hand turn. It's a steep uphill where you've lost a lot of the momentum. So Strange things happen here at the finish. Beautiful view off in the distance. That's the other side of the valley, on the other side of the city of Innsbruck. Just the mountainous region we're in here. Just gorgeous. Alex Gufla, 18-year-old Italian, the first of 5 Italians in today's race, the first of 2 Gufla brothers.
Yeah, and certainly the idea of momentum is important in our sport. And earlier today we saw the Italians take gold in the doubles competition. So that's always kind of inspiring for the rest of the team when that happens. And hopefully we'll lift the entire Italian team into today's competition in the men's singles.
That coming from Gordy Scheer, who here in Eagles had his first ever World Cup medal back in 1993. Gave the Americans its first World Cup medal in something like 10 years. He made it adventuresome on the lower part of that track, Gordy.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking a little bit about Curve 9 being a challenge point, and case in point right here. Came off and had some issues with that right wall. Just hung a little bit too long on the end, which forced him over to the left, and lucky to stay on the sled. And this is the entrance into the finish curve, but there were problems really from Curve 9 onward for Alex.
Sweden leading over Poland and Bosnia. 5 sleds in to this 32 sled field. Run number 1 in Innsbruck. And here is Josef Ninnis, who next week will be qualifying to compete in his 17th World Championship. That's as many as anyone in the sport right now.
It's incredible that he's able to still compete and maintain the level of motivation. More than anything else, that's just incredible. A little bit early there into curve 3. Just a bit.
Josef will turn 40 later this year, but keep in mind that 2 men in the past 10 years have won Olympic medals in their 40s. I mean, their names were Zugler and Demchenko, so they're a little more noteworthy.
Yeah, on top of the motivation level, it's also tough to have the elasticity and power at the start, once you get into your 40s. It's very impressive.
And the start has never been Ninnis' strong suit, but his sliding always has been, as evidenced by that run here. Run number 1 of 50.479, putting him well out in front of the early sleds.
That's a solid run.
And that actually was the fastest start time of everyone that's gone down so far.
Yeah, lines were a little bit off, but he just looks so relaxed, and he looks like he's really letting the sled flow there in the curve 12-13 transition. A little bit rough, but again, staying calm, staying cool, and letting the sled do its thing. That's so important in the sport.
Race director watching on today, as our race director is Marcus Schmidt. No, I don't think that was Marcus. That was the starter there. But Marcus Schmidt is the race director. He is an Olympic medalist back in 1992. Now on course, Mateusz Sokovic, the second of 2 from Poland. He's had 2 top 20s this season, Gordy, but no top 15s. And on this weekend, top 15 is key, isn't it?
Yeah, the Sprint World Cup event will be taking place tomorrow, and only the top 15 from this race will advance, and full World Cup points are awarded in those races, so you definitely want to be a part of that top 15, otherwise you lose a haul of points.
Sokovic 0.08 of a second up at that last intermediate split. Now the green has turned into red. His speed 77.6 miles per hour. This is a steep uphill to the finish line, losing a lot more time down at the bottom, 50.649. Second place right now for Poland, behind Slovakia. So the exit of the Kreisel. And then curve 9. Sokovic done. And next up we have our Romanian getting ready. Everyone's favorite Romanian, 31-year-old Valentin Cretu. When he's not luging, Valentin tries to spend as much time with his family as possible. That's always a challenge for anyone touring the world all winter. Quick tap of the wall on that start ramp. Sprint competition coming up tomorrow. As Gordy mentioned, only the top 15 in each discipline advance into that. This will be the third and final sprint on the World Cup this year, although there will be all 5 disciplines next week at the World Championships in Königssee, Germany. Men's, doubles, women's, the sprint, and the always exciting relay. Nice exit of curve 9 for Valentin Cretu. The high wall of curve number 10, and now the lower labyrinth.
A nice job here through the lower labyrinth. Staying cool, holding form, staying relaxed. Critical, but not enough.
Through with a time in 3rd place. 0.2 of a second behind Josef Ninnis. It is Slovakia over Poland, Romania, and Sweden. Looking ahead as we check out the replay of Vali Cretu, we've got the first of the Austrians coming up in just a moment. He'll be followed by 2 of the 3 Americans in this competition. 1 German out of the qualifying, Chris Eisler, back in action after taking a couple of weeks off, as they will count them down to the Russians, Germans, and Austrians, and the 1 Italian, who all figure to be the favorites. Anton Dukash now. Dukash from Ukraine, his teammate Manzi coming up in a little bit. They've had a decent year, and Gordy, of course, everything's relative once again, but the Ukrainians have been solid, at least based on performances in the past several years.
Absolutely. I think it's just a question of building a program up, and that's not just the technical sliding portion of it, but it's also the sled development and understanding of what makes a sled go fast. And that's really, really tough. And unfortunately, it takes a lot of resources to get to that point.
Anton finished in 21st at the opening race here in Innsbruck. This is the first time ever that Innsbruck has hosted 2 World Cup events in the same year due to all of the pandemic shifting. I'm not sure a lot of people mind because this is a favorite stop for everyone, with the city nearby, the gorgeous mountains in the backdrop. Dukash takes the lead with a 50.443. And haven't the coaches gotten adept at hamming it up for the camera, Gordy?
They certainly have. It's a lot of fun to watch the reactions. I wonder if there's a script that they're going through in their mind. There's a plan.
Well, in some cases, it's show off those sponsors, but whatever you can do to mug for the camera. It's all about the entertainment dollar. You know that.
That was a beautiful exit of curve 9. Definitely. Really, the sled ran nicely right off of there.
We'll be seeing plenty of this man in the years to come. Pavel Repilov, still just 18 years old, silver medal winner last year at the Youth Olympic Games in St. Moritz. Strong athlete. His brother, of course, is the defending world champion and World Cup champion, Roman Repilov.
Yeah, like you said, expect big things from this young man. Certainly, if he can follow in his brother's footsteps, he's got a bright future in front of him.
He opened his season, his career, World Cup career for that matter, 3 weeks ago with an 11th place finish in Berchtesgaden, Königssee, where the tour is headed next week for the biggest event of the year, the World Championships.
I like his form on the sled. He's laying back nicely and really just letting the sled do its thing.
That's the Russian way, of course, as Pavel crosses 400s up on the field into the lead. Can you coach that, Gordy? I mean, it's cliche. You tell all of your athletes, stay low, keep the head back. But it's all about comfort and relaxation, isn't it?
It's comfort, relaxation, and there's definitely an element of bravery in there because you have to trust yourself, trust your equipment, your setup, and that the sled's going to go straight. There's definitely an element of bravery in there for sure.
It's Russia out in front. Rapilov over Dukash and Ninnis. As we move along, all of these first 16 athletes qualified. That's Felix Loch, the World Cup leader and 8-time race winner this year. He'll be coming up in a little bit. And one reason you see him walking along the track, athletes often do that, but of course there's a little separation this year, Gordy, as well, of start houses. They can't all crowd into the one start area because they're socially distancing, and they're using all of the changing areas up and down the track.
Yeah, that's got to be a different element for all these athletes. You know, part of the whole feeling about sliding is talking to everybody in start house, less so on race day, but even, you know, just getting a sense of listening to the other athletes to get an understanding of what the track is like is a part of the game.
32-year-old Andre Manzi still holding an advantage over the Russian. That's a great sign for him as he exits curve 9. Kind of rough, but he straightens it out quickly.
Yeah, rough off 9, and there we go into the red, Tim. You're absolutely right. That cost him some, and he's just skidding around a little bit here down into the labyrinth.
To the finish, dropping 3 spots relative to the earlier sleds, in 4th place right now. So the standings have Russia, Ukraine, Slovakia. Those are the top 3 as we get ready for the first of the 5 Austrians. Wow, he hopped right up off of the ice.
Yeah, and luckily enough, you didn't see a lot of ice being cut there. It was just kind of bouncing back and forth between left and right. The runners, left and right steals.
This is a big tunnel area. It used to be years past when Gordy was first competing here. It was just this big mat, not undercover that the sled would hit if it was going too fast. Now they have a long outrun. Here's Reinhard Eger, and it's a bit of pressure for this veteran Austrian this week. Only 4 men will qualify for the World Championships this year, and Eger has clearly been number 5 on the performance chart this season. So he needs to make it up big time this week on his home track.
This is someone who struggled with injuries. I think the back has really been the issue for him.
That's correct.
And the back is so critical at the start. You need to use it's one of the major muscles at the start. And you see a lot of back issues with the athletes because of that, because so much stress is placed on the back during the start.
Quick tap of the wall on the transition between 9 and 10. Eger remains in the green. As I said, he's going to have to put one down and hope to be somewhere in the top 8 or 9 if he has any chance for a World Championship appearance. 50.529 or 259 rather. And head coach Rennie Friedel seems pleased.
Yeah, you saw Rennie reference the issue out of curve 9, Tim, which you talked to, that tap of the wall. And you really can't make many mistakes on this track if you want to be up in the top, and that definitely cost him. Especially with these walls, they're not necessarily smooth, so you're touching that rough surface and it's just slows you right down.
The Austrian out in front as we get ready for 2 Americans. First up, Johnny Gustafsson. Gustafsson premiered the season with all of the North American athletes 3 weeks ago in Koenigsee with the 20th place. Then had a top 15 the next week in Sigulda before dropping back to 23rd. And he does not have the cleanest start ramp there, does he?
No, he doesn't, and it's a shame because one of Johnny's advantages is the start. I felt like he was sitting up a little bit high on his paddles, maybe, and he also just had some direction right, and you don't want to hit walls at the start. But he's looking very good here, Tim. I've got to tell you, I think he looks very comfortable on the sled. I like his position.
Big, tall athlete, as you mentioned, fast at the start. Nicely done out of corner 9, but can he make it up?
It's going to be tough, but, you know, Johnny is a very good slider. Dropped a little bit off of 12 into 13.
5th place right now, a 50.494 for American Johnny Gustafson. His top speed, 78.1 miles per hour. They run that speed trap, I believe, somewhere just out of corner number 10. So there's still a lot of sliding to go after that, and that's why fast speeds don't always translate into fast times.
Yeah, he got a little bit squirrely on the settle, and the sled just took a little bit off to his right. So it wasn't the paddles. The paddles were okay. It's just trying to get back into that sled. And settling in the sled is not so easy as it seems. These sleds have, the runners actually have a very slight bow shape in them. And when you transition from that paddle position into that racing position, it can be unsettled sometimes.
Which is why athletes spend most of the summer working on that one aspect of the sport that they can in the artificially refrigerated indoor facilities. Now the second of 3 from the USA today. This is 25-year-old Tucker West, originally from the state of Connecticut. Tucker, a 3-time winner on the World Cup, and also a multi-time national champion. Also very fast at the start.
Yeah, you were talking about refrigerated indoor start training facilities. We have one here in Lake Placid where USA Luge is based. Tucker has won our internal team competition for 8 consecutive years, and that's a record for US Luge. So this guy is a machine at the start.
And you would
works like crazy too.
You would think, Gordy, on a track like Innsbruck, it's all about the start. If you have the fast start and you can at least stay off the wall, you're going to contend, right?
Definitely. Tucker is working on being more fluid, and the U.S. team as a whole is also trying to find and refine their sled setup. But this is a nice-looking run so far for Tucker.
Well, he had a podium yesterday in the Nations Cup qualifying race. He finished 3rd as he comes uphill in the lead, 50.137. Tucker West of the United States leading over Austria's Reinhard Eger and Russia's Pavel Rapilov. We're still less than halfway through this field.
This was really a nice run for Tucker. Bouncing a little bit off of that left wall coming out of curve 9. A little bit early onto curve 11. But I like his position. He seemed more relaxed than I've seen him slide in the past. So.
Well, the Americans are out in front. We get ready for the first German, and head coach Norbert Locke has been shuffling the deck, in particular with positions number 4 and 5. And you got to figure Isla is in a battle with Moritz Bollmann and Sebastian Bly for the 4th and final position next week at the World Championships on their home country track. So Eisler will try to make his statement right now. Bly is skipping this race. He's been left off the team. Bollmann coming up in a minute. And we assume that Locke and Langenhahn and Ludwig, the 3 Ls, have made the World Championship team.
It's tough to be a slider on a German team with so much depth.
And when you consider this man has a World Cup victory, but has been nothing more than a part-time World Cupper the last 3 seasons.
Nice through the labyrinth. Head rolled up the curve slightly in 13.
The German was faster than the American yesterday, but not today, as he drops into 3rd place right now. Doesn't really drop because it's run number 1, but he sits in 3rd place. It's USA, Austria, and Germany, as the first 15 of 32 have come down run number 1 here in Innsbruck.
little seeming a little bit bumpy out of curve 9. I don't think we were seeing that much bouncing earlier today for the doubles race. A little bit offline, a little bit uncomfortable on the sled in the lower labyrinth.
Isla down in third place. The Americans are leading Tucker West, but we've got one that I'm very excited to see getting ready now, Gordy. This is Jens Bergens, last year's Youth Olympic gold medalist. He not only won yesterday's Nations Cup qualifying race, he was putting down the fastest times all week long during training. So what a great rookie season already for Bergens.
Yeah, and going early in this draw might actually help him, depending on the ice conditions. We saw earlier today the ice held up pretty well, but this is a tough men's field, so he's going to take any advantage that he can get.
He's had a career best 7th place. That was last week in the Oberhof race.
These Latvian sleds are really running nicely this season, across the board in all disciplines.
It's been incredible to see the red turn to green a lot on the lower half of the track. All 3 disciplines, as you mentioned, Gordy. Still red, however.
Yeah, this bodes well for Tucker West.
Bergens to the finish. He's in 2nd place, but a full 1/10 of a second behind the American. So USA over Latvia and Austria as we complete the qualifying group. The first 15 of the 32. The remaining 17 are the seeded athletes entering the weekend. Ooh, a bit of a hop off of 9 there.
Yeah, a little one-runner action.
Well, we're going to get a really quick indication right now on how American Tucker West's run was, because the next of the Austrians is getting ready to go, Nico Gleicher. Nico in the top 10 in the World Cup standings. He's ranked 8th. He's on his home track. He finished 6th at the opening World Cup race held in November here in Innsbruck. So you got to figure advantage Nico. And if he falls behind West, then it was a great run by the American.
Most definitely.
On balance by his performances this year, Gleicher's spot on the World Cup team is probably pretty safe, although he's battling Kindle and Mueller and his brother David. So much depth with the men.
Created a little bit of extra distance for himself by drifting off to the left down the start ramp. Ideally, you want to be on the right and hit curve 1, which is has to be the smallest curve in all of Luge.
Well, there's that curve 0 in Winterberg, right? That's a little one. and the little bend away before the Kreisel and Koenigsee. Not to challenge you, Gordy. You've been down these tracks.
No, I think that bend away is less of a turn. More of a turn, pardon me.
Okay.
That's a tough one.
This has been a good run for Gleicher after that little bobble on the settle. Still on the red, trailing the American. The next split will be the finish split. Nico Gleicher in the lead, finding that time down at the bottom, 50.110. Austria over USA and Latvia exactly halfway through run number 1.
A tight race shaping up here. I think Tucker's sitting in a pretty decent position. Now there we go. That's that direction to the left that I was talking about, and it just added distance more than anything else. I'm not sure that he touched the left wall. Tough to see from that angle. A little bit of ice being cut on the exit. Seems like from the men's start today, we're seeing a lot of sleds coming off with that left to right rocking action.
Gleicher with the lead. His brother is waiting on deck, David Gleicher, but before he goes, one German is getting ready right there, grabbing the handles with the lime green gloves. Moritz Bullman. Now, Moritz has been taking part every week this year, but again, that 4th position for Germany at the World Championships, he's in a little battle with Isla and Blay. Good start time.
See if the sled can run. Nice middle entrances into these upper corners, which is what you want to see.
Looking very comfortable, Gordy. Out of Kreisel, now we have the key turns, 8, 9, 10.
You want to see that good position, shoulders back, head back. That's basically your steering wheel. You want to have your, losing a little time here.
And I'm not sure where.
Yeah, neither am I.
That'll be interesting to see. So uphill, he lost a lot of time. We touched on the track holding out so well. The Icemeisters did a great job in doubles. It's a warm day, so we're not going to pin this on the track. But when you don't know where the time was lost, that's very frustrating for an athlete, especially.
Yeah, I don't see any real. It's interesting to see how far a lot of these sleds are getting bounced backward. He went off to the left a little bit and maybe went a little too rough into 10 and a little too high, which added some distance there. And maybe that was just enough. Or maybe it's, maybe his sled is, maybe he's not set up quite right. Hard to know. And that can be the frustrating thing about this sport. Sometimes you just can't put your finger on exactly what the problem is.
Here's a local hero, David Gleicher. His brother has the lead down at the bottom, Nico. Up and down season for the Olympic champion with some crashes to go along with some podium finishes, including last week in Oberhof, where the Austrians finished 2nd and 3rd behind Felix Lach.
Had that little drift off to the right, and it looked like he might have taken a little bit of an uneven line, what we call a loop, in curve 2. But yeah, he dropped 1,000th of a second behind. Let's see if, this is his home track, so we may be able to make that up.
Well, we just saw his brother do it down at the bottom. Nico was in the red most of the way, in fact, right until the finish curve. His head popped up a little, but he made it a relatively clean exit of 9. Speed is good, 79.2.
A nice looking lower labyrinth, too.
David Gleicher finding a lot of time down at the bottom, 50.042. It's a Gleicher 1-2 leaderboard. West in 3rd place, Bergens in 4th, and Eger in 5th. So 3 Austrians have come down. They hold 3 of the top 5 spots right now in the standings.
Very nice. At a curve 9, no ice being cut. Good position. Beautiful lower labyrinth. Just spot on.
Great showing by David Gleicher. Still just 23 years old.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, he won that surprise Olympic gold medal, being the last man to qualify for the Olympics. Alexander Gorbatsevich next to go, 26-year-old Russian from the city of St. Petersburg. Trivia, what was the former name of St. Petersburg, Gordy?
Oh, you got me.
It was Leningrad.
Of course.
And before Leningrad, it was St. Petersburg.
Right.
5th fastest start time. We've seen speeds as fast as 79.2. That was the sled that just came down, David Gleicher.
I'm interested to see how Gorbatsevich runs in comparison to Tucker West.
If nothing else, it'll be a portent of how the stronger Russians, Roman Rapilov and Semen Pavlichenko, will do later. It's all about sled setup, and right now this is not looking good for the Russians.
Well, the Russians have been sort of hot and cold this season. Not consistently performing at the top like they have been in the last couple of years.
And also, this is I'm only getting sketchy information on this, Gordy, so we'll have to really research this before we get the true facts. But I have been told that a Russian coach tested positive for COVID earlier this week. So as a result, the Russians themselves had to been isolated. They can't share the start house. They've got to keep the sled separate. So that's an extra stress, an extra challenge. It's tough.
Things like that really make a difference, you know. Team dynamics, while this is an individual sport, team dynamics are very important, and getting those support from your teammates and being able to work closely with your coaching staff is also key.
Yeah, and again, to be clear, that is one source I got that from, but I have not yet backed that up. So we'll try to find it out, as certainly the Russians are going to contend later today in men's, certainly in women's. But we move on with the Italians, and this is Kevin Fischnaller, 27 years old, from Mironsen, which is sort of the hub of Südtirolian Italian luging. 90-minute drive or less from here in Innsbruck.
Nice looking off the start, settled into the sled, brought it slightly to the right to touch on curve 1, smoothly get on and off, drive a nice straight line without creating any drama. This upper labyrinth is all about middle entrances and exits and being smooth.
And this is all about being in the top 15 after today's racing, because Fischnaller is somewhat of a sprint specialist, with his best results, including his only podium this year, coming in the sprint discipline.
This is going to be very close at the bottom with Gleicher.
Fischnaller to the finish, and it was close. You called that, Gordy. Just 100th of a second, or between 1 and 200, separating the Italian, who sits in between the two Gleicher brothers in second place right now. That's what we call in the TV business a fixed camera. So if the loser goes too far, you're going to see his back.
Exiting Kreisel into curve 8. Nice entry point. Beautiful position on the sled. That was really nicely done. This is his home track, so to be expected.
Rolling Stones playing in the background. Of course, the International Luge Federation has bought the rights to those tunes to play them on the live stream. Olympic gold medalist David Gleicher has the lead, and Olympic silver medalist Chris Mazder now grabbing those handles and paddling at the start.
Oh, little problem for Chris, settling into the sleds. The second American who had settling issues today, Johnny Gustafsson being the first. And hopefully that won't affect Chris too much.
Mazder competing in the seated group this week for the first time this season, but a less than glorious start to his day, as he and teammate Jason Turdeman crashed in the doubles competition, ending up in 24th place.
Yeah, Chris, I'm wondering if he's suffered any issues from that crash, but trying to bury his head as low as he can, and he knows he needs to make a little time. I'm sure in his head he's thinking about it. He's just trying to mitigate what happened up at the top.
50.484. Is that all the start?
No, I don't think so. Tough to know where he's losing the time, but as I alluded to earlier, I think the U.S. team is right now a little bit on their back foot as it relates to sled setup. I know Coach Robert Fegg is working like crazy, trying to find some time for his athletes.
Well, with the tour headed to Königssee next week for the World Championships, you've got to expect Chris Mazder is going to delight luge fans with his annual dunk into the lake, right?
Yeah, I think he may have done one already.
I saw him dive into the snow, into a snowbank, right?
Yes, he did.
Here's another local hero, Wolfie Kindle. And long before David Gleicher was winning Olympic gold medals, Kindle was capturing world championships right on this track. fact, double gold in 2017 with the 2-heat men's race to go along with sprint gold. Kindle, like Ager, whom you were talking about earlier, also has had some back problems.
Yeah, you know, and Kindle really, a few years back, was just seemingly unbeatable for a string of races, and kind of hasn't quite gotten back to that stride that he'd hit a few years back.
You were alluding earlier today on how streaky can be, and after all of those wins, Kindle got DQ'd in a race. I forget what the infraction was, but that started a long slump. So how quickly things can turn.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know, in the case of an injury like Kindle, you know, even when you're feeling good, sometimes it's hard to just get back to that same level of performance that you had earlier.
Wolfgang Kindl trying to chase down teammate David Gleicher already. It's been a solid start for the Austrians, but not so for Kindl. He's in 8th place, significantly. That's 8th place behind not only the two Gleichers, but behind Reinhard Ager. And again, there are 5 Austrians vying for 4 positions at the World Championships next week.
Yeah, nice exit out of Curve 9. Maybe almost too early into Curve 10, perhaps just a bit. Tough to see the entry point. But Kindle is very aerodynamic.
It almost looks like he's in pain.
Yeah, it seems, you know, a few years back it would have been unimaginable that he's, you know, in the mix just to qualify for World Championships.
First of 2 consecutive athletes, Rick Rositas on course now. And you saw Kindle just a moment ago pick up that sled, which lugers, of course, always do. They must scoff at the bobsledders where the driver crosses the finish, the brakes are put on, the sled comes to a stop, and the driver just sort of walks away. Valet parking, please. Right? And the losers have to pick up their sleds, bad back, notwithstanding.
Yeah, you know, and we had a trainer who swore that half of our back problems came from just moving these sleds around.
Rositas is 26 years old, like Darznieks to follow. He comes from the small town of Sigulda, which hosts a race every year. In fact, the only race not on mainland Europe this season was in Latvia.
And just watching, I'd say one key point where time is being lost here is the feet. The first thing the wind sees are the feet, and if your feet and toes aren't pointed, you're losing a lot of time down the track.
24 of 32 have come down, and David Gleicher of Austria leading over Fischneller of Italy, Gleicher Nico of Austria, west of the USA, and Jens Berzens of Latvia. Those are the top 5.
Good looking lines, but again, the feet, that's definitely costing a lot of time. And not looking bad, but also not looking 100% comfortable. Just a little bit offline here throughout the whole run.
Now another Latvian, Arturs Darznieks, 27 years old, as I mentioned a moment ago. He's also from Sigulda. Nearly won his first podium on his home track 2 weeks ago. He was in podium position after run number 1 and dropped back to 4th, which is still a career best.
Definitely a star of the future, someone to watch. A very solid slider.
He lists as his favorite tracks Lake Placid and Königssee, so it's a man who likes to drive.
Yeah, that and Oberhof are really the driving tracks on the circuit, along with Sigulda.
Well, he took an interesting exit of curve 9 there. He's been in the red the entire way. Speed 125.4, not that good. And it might be advantage early sliders at this point in the day.
Yeah, it could be. Could be. We'll have to see
Well,
I don't know that I would say that just yet. But
yeah, we'll really get to know. We move into the super seed coming up right after this, which is the top 7 ranked athletes over the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, definitely some time lost here, and then drifting off to the left, and that puts you not at an ideal entry point into curve 10.
Quick question as we watch this replay comes from Jim. Why do the Latvians all slide with the Y-shaped legs? Latvian legs.
Well, that's a good observation, and it has to do with the width of the runners, basically. So it's an airflow thing, basically. For their sleds, perhaps aerodynamically, it works better with slightly wider leg position.
Interesting. As Johannes Ludwig slaps on that shield, grabs those handles, the Olympic bronze medalist and gold medalist in team relay, the third to last of the Germans. If you watch ski jumping for centuries, or at least decades, they jumped with the feet straight, and then someone figured out that V formation was aerodynamically better, the Y formation for ski jumping.
Yeah.
It's different. I get it.
It's different, but, you know, there's a lot of wind tunnel testing and computer modeling that goes on to optimize the shape of the sled and to try and understand body position, and that's definitely an area that we've seen a lot of movement in the past few years.
Ludwig holding steady from 900s to 93. Sounded like there was a little skid. It didn't seem as if he veered off that much. This will be interesting.
I think this is a pretty nice looking run.
First of the super seed, the final 7, and it is a first place run. 50.001. Johannes Ludwig, the only person who mathematically could capture the World Cup title from Felix Lach. To do that, he'll need to win all 3 races and have Lach get 0 points, which I think is already out of the question because Felix, just by finishing, will get at least a point, right?
Yeah, that's it. I think he's just has to finish this race, and Lach will have sewn it up.
By finishing 32nd in a World Cup race, if my math is right, you get 9 points. So we'll do the Lach celebration in a moment, but now it's the defending world champion, Roman Rapilov. He's also the 2-time World Cup overall winner. Rapilov's still just 24 years old. He's a 2-time junior world champion as well.
And what a slider he is. Just consistent, beautiful lines, nice position. It's really fun to watch.
Well, going into the year, if you ask most people who the best luger in the world was, this would be the man they'd mention, although he's been a bit inconsistent this year, as the entire Russian program has been, as you pointed out. And, of course, Felix Lach has regained that champion status, at least this season.
Yeah, a little bit offline going into curve 8. Looked like he got bumped down, pushed down a little bit on the entrance, which caused him to make some adjustments.
Ooh, major skid in the lower labyrinth. He's been in the red the entire way, and that cost him a number of spots. He's in 11th place. Maybe he was looking at 5th or 6th before that final problem.
Yeah, boy, that was very close to coming off the sled in curve 13. Very close. So here it's looking okay. We are crossing, just goes late out of 11 into 12, and it just catches a lot of height at the end and just slaps over into 13. By the time he gets into the entrance of 14, he's got it back under control, though.
His coaches all seem to be giving us about the same reaction. A little slide here, a little shift there.
I think everybody always wants to do better, and the coaches expect the same. So
now Max Langenhahn, who has won the only race this year not captured by teammate Felix Lach. Langenhahn has been steady, he's been clean, he's been consistent. He doesn't get much attention, but he's stayed in the seeded group the entire way, but that was an awful start.
Yeah, well, be interesting to see how much it costs him. I mean, 8/10 off at the start, or 800ths off at the start is certainly significant. And we saw that with Chris Masder, so this will be interesting to see where he sits in comparison with Masder.
By far his worst result this year was here in Innsbruck, the opening race, where he finished 15th, just qualifying for the sprint on the number, but he didn't fare much better in that sprint event where he was 11th. Top 10 every other week.
Oh, drops off to 9. Decent up until that point, start notwithstanding.
Just 21 years old, Max Langenhahn from Thuringia, Germany, crosses in 7th place. He kept it together pretty well, 50.247. And Felix Lach shows us exactly what happened on that start ramp. And let's see, he's just out of the top 5, which he would have safely been in. But wow, it's a trickier start ramp than it appears when you look at it.
Yeah, I think it was his paddles that caught him out. He appeared to come off the handle straight, and then just as he was paddling, he just drifted off to the right just a hair.
It's Germany's Ludwig leading over Austria's Gleicher and Italy's Kevin Fischnaller. And we get set now for our final 4 sleds. Now, all Felix Lach needs to do here, as we pointed out, is finish. If he finishes this race, he gets 9 World Cup points. Simply put, he leads the World Cup field by 295 out of a possible 300 points remaining. So Ludwig, who leads now, would have to win every race. And
yeah,
Lach will get his 9 as long as he's not disqualified, right?
That is true. And, you know, there's always been a little bit of some people saying, well, he's very fast. That's true, but his lines sometimes aren't great, and his form sometimes isn't great. But I have to say that this year, he has just been on fire. His position has been awesome. His lines have been great. I mean, really, just so impressive.
He's won 8 out of 9 races. He was in the red the whole first half of this run. He's found green. Aside from all of his experience, his equipment is just dialed in so much more than anyone else this year. He and Coach George Hackel keep this a close secret, what they're doing to that sled, but whatever it is they are doing, it's passing inspection, and it's beating everyone down the hill.
Yeah, and, you know, like I said, this year, he's always been a great driver, and I don't mean to take anything away from him, but this year it just seems like his position and his mental state, he's just been, well, unbeatable this year. Taking his time getting off the ice, certainly.
Well, he knows there's a camera looking at him. Not that Felix has ever been a camera hog. He actually shies away from the publicity to some degree. Now, Zeman Pavlichenko, and evidence of his season being steady, though not spectacular, is he has yet to capture a podium. This is a world champion and World Cup overall winner in the past, but he's still ranked number 4 in the World Cup standings. So top 10 every week, no podiums.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for consistency. You know, and being 4th in the World Cup without being on the podium is certainly, it's saying something.
It wins you a lot of prize money on the golf tour, not as much on the World Cup Luge tour. He's still in the green.
Yeah, this is a solid performance so far. Taking a lot of height in curve 10.
Yeah, I was going to say an interesting angle in curve 10. Let's see if he can stay in the green. Lach was incredibly fast down here, but wow. Pavlichenko does it. Ahead of the Germans into first place. And Gordy, who predicted Pavlichenko at the start of the day?
Some Tim Singer guy who, you know.
We'll see if that stands. A lot of sliding still to come, but Russia enjoying its best moment of the season in men's singles luge.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I've seen him look smoother before, but sometimes, you know, there are times when, you know, just being sort of on that ragged edge works, and he's certainly a fly or die kind of guy, so.
$30 down, 2 to come here. Russia, Germany, Germany, the leaderboard. Our final two, one more Austrian, one more Italian. And that Austrian is Jonas Müller, a world champion medalist last year in Sochi, a world champion medalist the year before in the sprint competition in Winterberg, and a two-time World Cup race winner, both here on his home track in Innsbruck. Now that was smooth.
Yeah, very nice. I think they're playing his song too, Tim.
Dead heat with the Russian pretty much with the start time. Only 1,000th of a second separated them. Let's see what the trend is here on the first couple of splits, now getting close to the Kreisel. Losing a little bit of time.
Nice even line through the Kreisel. Beautiful out of 9.
That same line that Pavlichenko just took.
Definitely took the higher line in 10 as well. Smoother through the labyrinth than Pavlichenko, but I don't know if he's going to be able to make it up.
Fourth place, 50.007. Only 6,000ths of a second separate third and fourth right now, setting up what promises to be a spirited rivalry for the podium positions in run number 2. They all trail the Russian, Pavlichenko, with one remaining.
Pavlichenko's lead is pretty significant for a race in Eagles. 600ths. That's pretty solid.
Well, we have one more to come. So before we anoint Pavlichenko the mid-race leader, let's remind everyone that Dominik Fischnaller is on his home track. He consistently does well here in Eagles, including World Championship podium performances. He's ranked at number 3, one spot ahead of Pavlichenko in the World Cup standings. He's had 4 podiums this season, all third. And Gordy, this is at least the 5th time this year that he has the 32nd and final start position in the draw.
Interesting. Nice looking start from Dominik. He's just such a great slider to watch, especially on his home track. Just smooth, relaxed, solid form.
Just about everyone, including the best in the sport, are prone to blow up one weekend, have a crash, have an awful race. Fischnaller is the exception. Doesn't podium every week, but I can't remember ever seeing him have major mistakes. He does have a tap there, though, out of 9. I hope I didn't jinx him.
Oh, boy.
Otherwise smooth, a 4th place time. Wow, if you look at the splits right now, 3, 4, and 5 are all within 6,000ths of a second of one another. And only 400ths back, you'll have the next couple. This is going to be a lot of fun in run number 2.
So tight, so tight. I'm surprised that Dominik wasn't a little bit higher up in the order, but he did lose probably half of a 10th right there.
I am putting him on the podium already. I am predicting podium for Fischnaller later on in run number 2. But
yeah, I think you're right. Conservatively, that was a half a 10th. So
check that out. 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
110, 114, 116. 6,000ths of a second. We'll be flashing up the full standings in a moment, but it shapes up to be a great battle for the medals here in the second to last World Cup. Okay, it's Pavlichenko leading over Locke, but look at 3, 4, 5, how tight that is. Gleischer and Fischneller, Kevin Fischneller, also in the hunt for the podiums. Those are the top 8. And heading the next page, American Tucker West looking to give the USA men its best result of the season. Ager back in 12th. Kindle a disappointing 14th as his spot in next week's World Championships far from assured. Roman Rapila back in 16th place. The Americans 23rd and 24th. No major crashes. Gordy, all 32 get finishing times.
Yeah, it was a solid performance by the field across the board. And